Hello and welcome to the Sports Card CEO. I'm Matt Ham, and with me every week is Eric Mandelkern and Gary Bubba Wilson, here to talk about collections and connections in the sports card hobby, give you some insight and advice to help you become your own sports card CEO. Gentlemen, what's up?
How we doing?
What's going on, man?
It is good to be live and rolling today. We've obviously landed on a name for the podcast. We're going to talk about that here a little bit later. But as we kick off the show this week, I want to do a little bit of a what's going on in your world kind of thing. And you guys fill us in, catch us up, and kind of kick the show off today. Eric, you start.
All right. Well, in my hobby world, I'm picking up more Sebastian Walcott by the day. I got another 2 orange 10s delivering any minute. Gary and I actually went in on a purchase together, and we purchased the Travis Bazzana Super Auto. So really excited about that. But other than that, man, just the usual Groundhog's Day for me. 3 kids, 2 of them in school, 2 boys, boy, girl. 2 boys love to beat each other up all week, so I'm constantly breaking up fights between them. But other than that, just managing my business and looking for Sebastian Walcott when I can.
Love it, man. Love it. Bubba, what's up with you, bro?
Wow, man. It sounds like Eric's my brother from another mother. I'm dealing with the same stuff on the personal side over here. I've got 3 boys and a little girl, and I think it's been fight week. They've all been back in school this week, which was nice to get me back in a routine as well. So that was nice. Sports is rolling, though. Baseball has started here in Georgia. We took advantage of some nice weather after the snow got out of here this week, and so I was grinding. Kids get home from school. We have baseball, basketball seasons running together, but just grinding really this week on the personal side, but getting back in a flow. On the hobby side, again, brother from another mother, we're doing a lot of the same things over here right now. That could be a good or bad thing. We could sink like the Titanic on some of these things, or we could really roll. I think, Eric, what do you have? 6 of the 7 PSA 10s now? Is that what you said? Oranges of Walcott?
Yeah, I did have 6 of 6, but it looks like you gemmed up an orange.
There's a new member to the 10 Club.
So yeah, when Gary told me that, I saw the pop report, and I was like, okay, I have 6 orange 10s. I was like, there's a 7th. I'm like, who has the 7th? And he's like, well, I do. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I just got word that my orange gemmed. And that was, I don't know, to be determined if it's the orange that we dealt in another deal with each other. But 6 of the 7 orange 10s. So between the 2 of us, we got all the orange 10s. Yeah.
Yep. Outside of the Walcott, the Bazzana, I'm kind of like a vulture right now of the Bowman world. Very difficult right now. I'm going to come back to this a little bit later in the show because I think it's worth mentioning. It's a grind out there right now to find Bowman. It really is. And so outside of that, though, just been a great week. Get the kids back in school, get a flow going, and I guess we'll roll over to you, Matt, and talk about your week a little bit.
Well, just so I don't feel like outside of the club or whatever, I have to bring this on camera here. There may be an 8th gymming soon. So sorry, I had to do it. It's sitting here prepped to go to PSA.
That's funny because I was talking to Little Matt yesterday also, and I said the same exact thing I said to Gary. I was like, I think I have 6 of the 7 PSA 10s. I was like, I got to get that 7th, and he goes, he's like, not for long. There's not going to be 7 for long. I was like, man.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I just had to throw that in there, But yeah, man, what I love about this, guys, is that we share so much in common outside of the hobby. Like, we connected over the hobby, but like we all have the same kind of vibe going on. 3 boys here, 2 girls. Our crew's been sick all week. So I tell somebody, like, the equivalent of a prison sentence is to be locked inside of a house in quarantine with a sick family.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Dude, you don't understand it unless you have a lot of kids and a big family. So we had 4 out of 5 out of school yesterday. Today we've got out sick, and we've got today 2 of the 5, and so we've just been rolling. My wife and I just look at each other and been living in sweatpants and sweatshirts and just like pushing through. So yeah, it's been a tough. We had on the hobby front, Little Matt and I, man, it has been a ridiculous start to the year. Little Matt will join us at some point with some stuff. He's just a savant at cards and comps and being able to find stuff. And we had an orange Roman Anthony that we had picked up a couple weeks ago. Honestly, honestly, and had a buyer who was just looking for it for like a PC thing, and it worked out great for us. And so we had a big sale on that this week. Picked up a Cheerio Gold 10. Matthew is following you guys' lead, really eating up some Walcott and stuff. But the thing I love about it is just like baseball season's here, and all this prospect stuff that we've been sitting on for the last year that nobody cared anything about. Now everybody's like, let's talk about prospects because baseball season is here. So we'll dive into that a little bit later as well. But guys, we want to really invite our listeners to kind of embrace this show as we are collectors ourselves, fathers ourselves, businessmen ourselves. We're really looking to empower and encourage others to kind of be excellent, right, in all those different aspects of their own life. And that's really why we did the hobby. We did come upon a name, and the Sports Card CEO was that name and title there. And it was really about helping other people take that kind of mindset into their hobby and make it almost their own sports card CEO. Do you guys have any thoughts that you wanted to add on, why we named it that, or the benefits of naming it that, or just kind of, your heartbeat behind the name and where we're going from here?
I'll just go ahead and hit it real quick. I mean, I think we all discussed it for quite a while to come up with the right name, right? I mean, we spent a lot of time, a lot of effort and energy on it. And when finally we had the conversation around the Sports Card CEO, I think it just clicked for all three of us that it made sense. We've all tried to take what we've done in business, things that have worked well, and try to take them into the hobby. And now I think years later, after we've seen the failures, we've seen the things that haven't gone so well, the things that have gone well. I think part of this show is to be able to share, number one, what those mistakes were, so hopefully you don't have to make them. Ones maybe mistakes we're making in the moment, maybe successes we're having in the moment, but just in general to bring that flair to the show, but then also to bring what we're seeing in the baseball world. I mean, I think in this hobby, there's so much activity that goes on every day. And if you're only you only have an hour a week to spend on baseball cards or baseball processing, but you love it, we're going to hopefully in this 30 to 45 minutes, going to be able to share a lot of information with you that can help you. That 30, 45 minutes you spend on the hobby, hopefully there's some value we can bring to you guys in that way. And I think we will be able to do so.
Yeah, well said.
Kern, any other thoughts?
I mean, look, Matt, you touched on it earlier. We all share commonalities between the three of us in that we're, CEOs of our own company or bosses of our own company, whatever you want to call it. But, this is everybody listening in the hobby. It's, whether you are an employer or a boss, a CEO, when you're in the hobby, you're the CEO of your sports cards, right? And so we're the CEO of our sports cards, but we also run our own company. So we're hoping to bring to you the ideas that we've learned in being successful in the outside world of business and also being successful in sports cards, and hope that, you can gain something from us, some value from us in what we've learned and bring it to your own collection and bring it to your own.
What I love about this hobby and what's really unique too is, we're not getting into the details here, but all three of us, like you said, and our companies are different sizes, and they're different scales, right? Gary's in Georgia, Kern, you're in New York City and the heartbeat, and I'm down here at the coast of North Carolina. But one of the things that's beautiful about the sports card hobby, I think a lot of people can look at this and go, well, if I'm not buying high-end cards, then it's not really a CEO. And I'm like, no, dude, if you have a $200 card, if you have a $20 card, like, you still are managing your assets.
Right.
And so get outside of I think a lot of times the danger in business is comparison. I hate comparison. Comparison is stupid, but it's what we predicate success on, because we look at somebody else
Correct.
doing something better, and we look at people that have better cards. Now, you can use that to drive you and motivate you, or you can use it to kind of keep you like, oh, well, my cards suck, depressed. No, man, like, go ahead and say, this is my asset. It might be a base chrome PSA 10, first Bowman of Sebastian Walcott, and not an orange auto, but like still treat it that way. And I think if you begin to embrace and treat your hobby as a CEO and manage it that way, regardless of your asset size, you're going to be successful. So I just wanted to say that to our audience, to let people know, like, it's not about how big a card you have.
100%. It's all relative. So it's very well said. Thank you.
So a lot of big plans for the show too. Like I'm kind of just flying along. Just you guys asked me to host, and I'm like, okay, I can talk. I've done that the majority of my life. You guys have been having some really cool behind the scenes conversations. I don't know how much we can share right now, but like, let folks kind of know where we're going, kind of vision, and let's plant some seeds a little bit.
Well, I think Eric and I and Matt, there's been a lot of conversation about how to bring value again to you, the listener. Part of that's going to be trying to bring people in the hobby on the show, people that are in the hobby, people that are in the actual athletes and players and scouts. We want to keep it, and that's something I wanted to bring up earlier, and we kind of jumped over it with the Sports Card CEO. We want to keep this very recent. We don't want to come back to you guys and give you a comp that happened 3 months ago, because this hobby changes. It's every day, it's every week, it's every month. And so we're bringing you the recent news, not only for the hobby, but in the baseball world. And so that's what we plan to do as well with athletes that are in the space, bringing as much new material as we can, that baseball, sports cards, and prospects.
Yeah, we want to your point, yes, we want to keep this show as current as possible on up-to-date news, in the outside world, baseball world, the hobby world. And so when we're reporting, when we're talking about comps for a specific player or a specific card on a weekly basis, we're not just here to report that news and say, because you could look that up on your own, but we hope we're gonna expand on that and try to, in our opinion, give you what that means for that player's market or for what that means for the hobby. And it's not a right or wrong, it's an opinion. So you take it for what you will, but that we're going to try to assess what we think that means, if it means anything, not just report the news.
Yeah, I'm super excited about some of the potential partnerships that are already kind of in discussion, and just the opportunity to reach the hobby by utilizing a lot of that spread. So, and one of the things I wanted to mention to our listeners, like if there's somebody in the hobby that you value or somebody in the hobby that you feel like, would be a good guest or whatever, I mean, we want to engage our audience to say, who do you want to hear from? Who do you want us to kind of, not grill, but you know what I mean? Like, who do you want us to get on with? And so I wanted to throw that out there to our listeners. Like, if you're watching this show and you're like, oh, dude, I'd love for them to, so send that out. We're going to establish like an email and a social channel. We'll have the social media so you guys can inbox us or email us and stuff. So all that's definitely coming.
Yeah, another thing to note, I think we need to probably do this, is do an introduction of how you do contact us on social. If you have Instagram, we all obviously are active on Instagram. So I'm Baseball Bros Sports Cards on Instagram, and you guys kind of want to share y'all's, and that way you can always reach out to me as well off the show if you have a question about a card or a player or something we discuss, or if these two guys I know are happy as well. We just love talking baseball. We love talking the hobby, and it could be business stuff. It really doesn't matter. We really want to get connected with our listeners, and I'm 100% available for that.
Same here. On Instagram, Kern's Cards. Reach out anytime, whenever you want to. Whenever you want to jive, always down to talk business, down to talk sports cards, down to talk prospects. I get messages every day from some people that just want to talk that, and I love that. So feel free to reach out.
Kern, I'm going to message you and ask you, did that police car, did it stop right beside your bill? Like, I want to know what's going on outside your window.
Yeah, the answer is you don't want to know what's going on outside my window. You don't, trust me.
It's so fresh. Yeah, so we're Ham House Sports, on Instagram, and you guys can connect. And in post, we'll actually put our handles at the bottom of the screen so people can see this. But we've established an Instagram handle for this show, and that is the Sports Card CEO on Instagram. And I think we grabbed the domain as well for a landing page, and so more than likely we'll have Bubba, Kern, or Ham or whatever at Sports Card CEO, the Sports Card CEO. So we'll get to that, but again, for now, Instagram's going to be a great channel individually, and then of course the Sports Card CEO will be the handle for this channel. So guys, kind of moving along with the show here. This week we wanted to talk a little bit about baseball hype, baseball season. We're 4 weeks away from spring camp. And,
exciting.
Yeah, guys are getting ready, to depart for Florida or Arizona, which is always the run up in the hobby as far as cards starting to transact, things starting to heat up. The idea here is we kind of get onto players before they're talked about on SportsCenter. So we're looking at guys that are going into spring camp, maybe with a chance to make the team out of camp. We're looking at guys that are in AA, AAA, going to get an invite to spring camp. They're going to get in front of some major league pitching, have a chance to show off a little bit, and then get placed back in AA or AAA for call-up or whatever. So, Gary, I know you wanted to talk about international prospects. Kern, I know you had a specific player you wanted to address. Is there anything else in regards to spring camp or whatever you guys wanted to flash up before we dive into those topics?
I mean, not really, outside of, I think that there's going to be a lot of conversation in the weeks ahead about that very topic. I mean, there's a ton of topics to discuss. For example, a guy like Samuel Basayo, who's, the potential of is there a place for him on the Orioles roster coming out? Where does he go? He was just, he's now put as the number one catcher on Baseball America yesterday, probably potentially going to be a top 10 catcher this season. What's going to happen with some of these guys? There's a lot of those questions, and that will be answered, the next 60 days. And we're going to be watching that. We're going to be talking about that. And my favorite thing this day and time has become under the radar guys. I love the big guys. I love that there's 5 to 7, maybe 10 guys that are probably higher end prospects. But I've really become a big believer in trying to get some of these guys that are maybe a tier or two down. And so what I'm going to start doing as well, Kern's got all these beautiful cards behind him. Each week, I'm going to start before the show starts. I'm going to take a card or two and I'm going to place it right here. I may not even mention that player during the show, but it's going to kind of be some under the radar guys that I'm discussing, because to me, that's a lot of the fun in this hobby as well. Is we can chase the big guys, that's fun, but when you hit on some of those other guys, that's a rush. And so I think there's a lot of discussions ahead there.
One of the things that I was going to say is the way I treat my card portfolio is very much how I treat my investment portfolio or my client portfolio, right? Like in my world, I'm in the insurance industry, right? Like I'd love for every client to have, $1 million replacement value on their house and, 4 cars. And I mean, that's a key account, right? I mean, you've got those types of folks and you're always targeting, those folks and their friends or whatever. You get a phone call for a young family buying their first home, and it's a $200,000, $300,000 home. I mean, you're not turning that away, and then a small business that needs a GL policy that's a, $500 premium. You don't turn that away because, you can grow with those folks, right? And again, you never know. I always tell little Matt this. It's like, man, treat every single person the same, because you never know where that relationship is going to go to. And so with cards, I see this beautiful opportunity to go after, like you said, Gary, the top tier prospects, kind of your premier guys. And then you also have to have the other tiers and to kind of build out the collection, and to guys that can't maybe afford a Walker Jenkins or whatever. You've got to be able to play the game.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up. You manage your cards like you would your investment portfolio or key clients versus clients that are not so big. Because when I first started working at the company that I run now, it was somewhat of a very unhealthy business in that all our eggs were in one basket, in one large client. And it was one big client, right? And then a couple small ones. But when you have 90% of your business in one large client, it's unhealthy, right? It's not stable. And then one of the things that, when I came in and started moving up here, was I searched for new business, and I said, this business needs to be healthier. And we gained 3 new extremely large clients. So it's similar to in the sports card world, in that you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. And it's something to discuss, and you should keep in my opinion, you should keep a diverse portfolio. And whether you're just that doesn't mean that you need to collect all sports, basketball, baseball, and football. But let's just say, for example, here in the baseball world, whether high end, low end, mid end, you want to diversify, right? Like you don't want to have, and I say this having owned 7 of the Walcott Orange 10s, but like, kidding. But if my entire portfolio was all Sebastian Walcott, I'd be probably making a big mistake. Maybe I hit big, but it's a huge risk, just like having that one client, right? Like you want to diversify. You want to have some risky guys, a small percentage of risky guys in your portfolio. You want to have some guys that are top prospects, and then you want to have the guys that are, medium risk. I think it's just very important to maintain a diverse portfolio from your sports card collection and also in business.
Yeah, y'all hit on some great stuff here, and I hit a couple notes here. I mean, it's very similar to me with crypto. right? Like, I mean, it's how I've been looking at crypto. Most of my net worth is in real estate, is in stocks, is in wholly owned businesses. But then I was like, man, I'm missing out on the boat here on crypto. I got to get some sort of percentage there, right? And so I did, and I put a very low percentage. I mean, less than half of 1% in crypto, probably even less than that, maybe maybe a quarter percent. And then all of a sudden, crypto exploded for me, right? And I'm doing really, really well in crypto. And so then now all of a sudden, that amount of money has grown. And then I'll give you an example. Yesterday, it blew up again, right? I'm like, man, do I really believe in this? So I took a lot off the table yesterday. And I woke up this morning, it's still flying, and I'm going, man, I need to put 50% in crypto, and you get that feeling sometimes.
No wonder you called me all excited to start buying more this morning.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I knew something was up.
But I just think that that's a perfect example of how the card world works as well. We can get that FOMO sometimes, and we can roll right back into player when it's too late. On players, we've all done that. We've all got on that guy that everybody else was on and tried to get on the end. Paul Skeens maybe a little bit last year for some people type feel. But I wanted to share, I think y'all brought up a really good point about allocation and how the private equity world that I've lived in now the last 3 years. I sold my business to a private equity company. I've been involved in private equity. When they go to buy companies, one of the first things you look at is what is the allocation of customers. I mean, if that is a dead telltale to stay away. If somebody's got 90% of their customers in one customer's 90% of the business, you are scared shitless to make that purchase. And so the value of that becomes really low. And there's a reason for that because of the risk that's involved. So I think that there's those type of things, crypto, when you take private equity in the real world, that come into place. But just again, to share my own mistakes. And this is our second episode. From episode 1 to episode 2, I'm learning, guys. I mean, from episode to episode 2, it made me think all last week about, man, am I doing this wrong? Can I take a little bit of what each of these two guys is doing and put it in my own? And, when I first got in this hobby, I was buy and hold everything. And that's a mistake because the trees do not always grow to the sky, and so to me, that's really, really important as we look at allocations in this show. I think that's going to continue to change. But having that 10%, 15% of your allocation, if you can afford to do so, that you're saying, these are my home runs. These are the guys I just believe in. I believe they're going to be there. I firmly believe that I've been missing that boat. That number should have been 15%, shouldn't have been 80% or 100%. And that's... So I think as we continue to grow and on this show, it'll be constantly discussed where we're at on those allocations. But I can tell you personally, for me, that number is getting more buy and hold around 15% at the moment.
Yeah, I love what you brought up about the crypto thing, Gary, because little Matt and I have done the same thing. Like, we had a buddy of ours who was really big into crypto. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but we had made all this money in the cards, and I was like, let's take some of that profit and let's just throw it in here and see. We're buying XRP and HBAR, XRP under $1 and HBAR at 15 cents, and XRP now is over 3 and HBAR is over 35 cents, and it's like, we ran our breakdown the other day, and whereas crypto was probably 10% of our portfolio, the way it's kind of like 4 or 5x'd over the last few months, it's now like, so it's crazy when you start to apply that. What you got, Eric?
No, I was going to ask you a question. If you had the chance to sell a $10,000 card right now, you had the opportunity, would you prefer cash payment or crypto payment?
It's interesting. So we actually sold 3 cards with crypto, or we received crypto as payment on those cards. One was a blue Ronald Acuna Bowman. We received XRP for that at 185 per XRP, and we cashed out when XRP was at 275. So essentially, for a blue Ronald Acuna Bowman, we agreed upon a price point of the low 4s. But
so like high fives.
Easy high fives. And so it was crazy. It exponentialized our return on that card because we took the crypto payment. Same thing on a couple of other cards. And so what's interesting about that is, this is a little side note, we didn't intend to get into this. Crypto wallets, I think, could replace PayPal because the transaction is immediate. It goes immediately into the wallet. And I think as technology evolves and more people become comfortable, with that, I think that is a great way to think about. Because with PayPal and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you got friends and family, or is it this, or is it that? With crypto, when you're dealing with somebody it's in your wallet immediately, and once you've established a relationship there. Anyway, that's a side note, but I mean, we've done that here recently, and it's been ridiculous the kind of benefits we've seen.
Well, I think you bring up another topic, and again, I don't want to spend the whole episode on crypto, but this is intriguing conversation that, again, we didn't even have on the agenda for today, but it brings up the thought in my mind, if you're going to take a crypto payment, should that pay, to me, is crypto worth as much as cash? Are you going to give dollar for dollar the value of that crypto, or is it going to be, hey, I'm going to value your crypto at 90% of the dollar, or if that crypto is worth 4,000 USD, do you want 4,500 in crypto for taking the chance that by the time you took that crypto and by the end of the day, it could be X? So
and it very well
I think that's an interesting thought as well of where the hobby is going to go in that, because the answer to your question for me, Eric, is if somebody's going to give me another 10%, upside with taking crypto, meaning that I could pick up, $4,400 on a $4,000 transaction because I'm taking crypto as the payment instead of cash, I would do that all day long.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. So again, we can dive into that, and our listeners will let us know if it's intriguing to them, and we'll keep, answering questions and stuff like that. I think one thing too, guys, is we want to create, maybe on the website or the social media channel, we want to have like a Q&A where people can submit questions to the show, and we can kind of answer those and say, whatever Steve from Ohio asked us.
A little mailbag.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm thinking out loud as we're
recording.
One segment I do want to kind of tease it here, because I know we did want to talk about that a little bit. Teasers is, I do think having little Matt come on, who is, like you said earlier, who is a savant when it comes to values and comps, having a future segment for you listeners that really highlights deals that have happened in the space, comps that are interesting in the last couple weeks. And little Matt has the pulse on that on a daily basis. I get texts from him all the time. I got a text the other night, and he said, "Did you see that Christian Campbell gold go for PSA 10 go for $4,000?" And I was like, "No, I didn't." Boom, there it is. Then he's like, "Did you see this comp? Did you see that comp?" So
he's got his pulse in the hobby, so he could talk public comps, but he could also talk private deals going on. I feel like he knows everything, every deal that's going on. So that would be very helpful for.
Well, you said it the other day, Matt. I mean, most listeners here, we know y'all have 30 to 45 minutes that you're on the way to work, or you're going to listen to us on the way to work or the way back, or you're at the gym, you're getting a workout in. And if, again, we can bring anything to you in that 45 minutes where you go, wow, I didn't know Christian Campbell comp went here. I've got 3 Christian Campbells. Oh, man, I need to be on Christian Campbell. Even if that's the one thing that episode you took away was the comps for that episode, then that's a win, in my opinion. And because, last week for me on the show, I took away 10 different things. I went back and rewatched the show, and I'm sitting there writing notes for myself, things I could do differently. And that's what we hope to bring to the table here.
For sure. Gary, one of the things you wanted to talk about was international prospects. Go ahead and touch on that, and we'll just kind of go into that segment of the show.
Yeah, I just think that's obviously recent news, and very recent, meaning it happened this past week. And so just wanted to touch on it because I do think there's going to be potentially a future episode around maybe the value or lack thereof in international classes of the past. I think there's an interesting way to look at that, again, with allocation maybe. But I did want to talk about this week, and Eric's Mets, who like to pay big bucks for everything, went ahead and did it again. They struck again, folks, this week. They went ahead and paid Elian Pena $5 million this week. So he was the top international signing for the Mets. And then number 2, which I thought was kind of an interesting name to throw out there, are lowly Miami Marlins. Went out and spent a lot of money on a guy with the last name Salas, who is a brother to Ethan Salas. Andrew Salas was the number 2 pickup at $3.6 million. And so we'll be interested to see where those guys land in future Bowman releases as well. But I've spent a lot of time over the last week just really diving into past international classes, and really want to, when we have the time to do it, I want to dive in because I think there's just a ton of stuff to unpack there when it comes to home runs, maybe to find where we're not looking at them right now in Bowman, and then maybe some danger spots ahead.
Yeah, it's a big hit or miss. We were talking about that earlier. You're either hitting or missing big. Hitting big, Soto. Missing big, what's his name? Christian Vaquero.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hit or miss, and it goes back to they're all in chrome, and it's how much of our portfolio, or how much should we be, how much stock should we be investing in these young guys? Like, what percentage of these guys actually make it?
Well, I'm interested to see Matt's, opinion on this as well, because Kern, you and I have been a lot more buy and hold guys, right? That's just been
Yeah.
our feel. Where Matt, y'all have been a lot more burn and churn, and I know y'all had a Paulino Santana red, right? Which that card could potentially be a giant card one day, right? I'm pretty sure y'all sold that card already. So I want to get your feel on even burning and churning on the international signings, because I know that's not maybe as easy. Those cards usually don't. When they get a bump, they fly real fast. But if you're buying some of these guys, they may not move for a while. So how do y'all play that space?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna just tell you boys straight up. There ain't holding nothing back. I'm trying. Little Matt would correct me probably, so I'm gonna probably post this episode. He's like, "Dad, you forgot about this." But there's only 2 reds we've ever owned. I'm pretty sure. The Paulino Santana, we bought it raw, and we gemmed it, and we sold it. And the other one was a Gabe Gonzalez red that we traded into raw and sold raw.
Well, that was a great move.
And well, here's the thing. I just knew that for those 2 guys at the time we came into the deal, the opportunity was then because of the upside that was in front of us. So I traded a Jackson Holiday blue PSA 9 and a little bit of cash for this Gabriel Gonzalez red to a kid on the show floor at the National. I gave him his number, you know what I mean? But I traded into it, and I mean, I literally had dealers at the table watching going like, I hate you right now. They're like, because they saw what had happened. But the kid wanted a holiday, right? And on the Paulino Santana, we bought that in a lot with about 6 or 8 cards from a guy that's a breaker, and we gemmed it. And so I am a big fan of the international prospects. And Gonzalez, yeah. But you can capitalize on them in the moment, but you have to be so quick with it. And you have to know your your liquidation channel. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give anybody is there's a liquidation channel for every card. You just have to understand where that liquidation channel is, right? And so like for real quick, a repacker doesn't care anything about a red international prospect. You know what I mean? So that's not your liquidation channel. So you have to know who the guys are to target for these specific cards.
Yeah, and I think you guys do. You and Little Matt do a really, really good job at doing that. And when I'm not gonna lie, like I'm a buy and hold guy, but I will sell on hype when you have the window. Like with these international guys, you're either you have that small window at release, or between release and the next product where you can gem a card. You either got to move it quick, or you gotta hold on to it. But when I buy a card, I'm thinking, somebody asked me yesterday, kid in high school messaged me, and he asked me yesterday, he's like, what's, I'm doing a project. I'm trying to start my own, company with cards and stuff and whatever. He's like, what percentage do you buy at and what do you sell at? I said, it's a great question. I don't work like that. When I'm buying a card, I'm buying it. I'm not trying to buy at X%. I'll pay real strong. I'll pay 110% if I feel that confident. I'm thinking, what am I going to sell this at? Where do I think this card can be? I'm taking that risk, but where do I think I'll sell this card, and who am I selling it to? If I don't have answers to those 2 questions, I'm not buying the card. Is there a market for this card in the future? What is it, and where is it? Who does it go to? Are there buyers for this? So if I don't have answers to those 3 questions, I'm not buying the card.
Well, I think this brings up the great debate of all time that we'll have here, because, obviously there's stories of Gabe Gonzalez, where this guy played the opposite of Hamhouse and got smoked, right? I'm still holding a ton of Gabe Gonzalez. He's like, yeah, I might as well turn him into toilet paper. But, I mean, outside of that, though, I think, Eric, what you just brought up, something that's really answers that question, too. Someone was asking me that question, when am I buying the card? Am I buying it in November? Am I buying it in January? Am I buying it in February? Am I buying it in March? Is that guy getting hyped by Baseball America? Is he batting .425 in the first 2 weeks of the season? Sometimes paying 110% comp is the move. But on the other side, and this is where I would argue this, with Matt, as far as, and I think this is where I don't know if Matt will ever get to that way of thinking that we have, and that's what's cool about this show. But I do think that there is as I'm molding my way of thinking, I'm becoming more like Matt in a way, a more burn and churn. But again, like a Paulino Santana, if I've got conviction on a guy, and I've got, let's say I'm in on a red for $700, and I know that my ROI easily in a year could be $10,000, I'm holding and taking that shot. Percentage is right. And so I think, again, there's different ways, and Matt's way of doing it, these guys crushed it. But I think there's also different, and there's these different ways of making this allocation and what that ROI could be. Because at the flip side, Paulino Santana could be worth $400, right, in a year. But who knows?
So I wanted to, kind of just switching over, like one of the things I wanted to talk about on this episode, it's not necessarily international prospect, was a specific prospect. His name is Zyhir Hope. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because a lot of happened this week in the name of Zyhir Hope. So for those of you that don't know, he was a prospect that was not a top 100 prospect when 24 Bowman came out. And he was a guy that was on my radar along with Aiden Miller that I was really hoping was going to be on the checklist. He was not on the checklist when the checklist came out, and I was very disappointed. And turns out, I was watching break, a blue first Bowman, my first Bowman, came out, and then 2 red lavas came out at some point throughout release. I purchased one of those red lavas because this was later in release that there had only been, at that point, one other that had surfaced. He wasn't on the checklist. I purchased that card for $4,000 because I loved the prospect. I thought maybe these guys got, short print autos, limited autos. I don't know what's going on, but I purchased the card raw, direct from the breaker, from the owner for $4,000. Double dimed it at PSA. Well, I should say, sent it to PSA. They wouldn't grade it. So got it, talked to somebody at Fanatics, got it added to the checklist because I said that these cards, a couple of these cards had surfaced. They got it added to the checklist, double dimed it, held on to this card. I was so happy to have it. And I got an offer a couple months ago in September from the guy that said he had the other 2 cards that had surfaced. He offered me $7,000 for the card. I'm sitting here with an option of, I know it's a red lava and it's $7,000 of a guy that's not a top 100 prospect, but I do like him. Do I take the $3K profit, or do I hold and do I take the $3K profit and maybe he has autos and they release them at a later date, whether it's a mystery redemption or he's in Bowman Chrome and it's a first auto, and then all of a sudden I'll never see that K again, or maybe probably never even that 4K again, right? Or do I take the risk and hold this thing and hope that this becomes a monster card and that he doesn't have any more autos? So fast forward a little bit now to draft. Chrome he wasn't in. Fast forward to draft. So I sold that card for $7,000. Fast forward to draft. He's got Chrome cards that are not firsts, and he's got no autos in there. I got a message last week. I got a message from somebody random on Instagram, not a card account or anything. Said, I don't know if you still have this card, but I'm willing to pay you $12,000 for it. I said, well, fuck me.
We'll get the edit button in the post.
Bleep that one out. But turns out, I did ask somebody at Fanatics about it yesterday. Gary, you were there with me on the call, and we're getting some answers on it. But I wish I had held on to that card. But that's just a unique situation because Baseball Prospectus put him out as the number 8 prospect going into the preseason. The guy's an absolute beast, and it's just a shame because I feel like there's a missed opportunity here in the marketplace for people to own his cards.
Well, it's interesting, and guys, we need to probably wrap up here in about 5 minutes. I know we could talk for 2 hours on these episodes,
yeah.
But I mean, we need to honor our audience's time. I think about when I think about that kind of card, Kern. I think about I've gone after these inserts here recently, right? And of Cal Ripken Jr. because he's my guy. And it's funny, I've got one right here. This is the Legacy. It's the Flair Legacy. It's numbered to 100. and this is the row 2. This is a PSA 9 Pop 2 none higher, and there's only 3 other ones graded. So like that card, there is no replacement for it, right? Now, by contrast, that's not a $4,000 card. That's like a $400 card. But my point is, when you've got a guy like Zyhir Hope and you don't really have any answers, you know that you own one of 3 assets of a guy that is his autograph in a first Bowman. Like that would be one that I would be willing to ride out, because it's a limited asset, right? Because you only know of 3 in existence. You actually are cornered a third of the market cap on that guy's auto. But by contrast, it kind of fights against that rule that I have. If you're making 30, 40%, you got to move on. But I looked up his stuff. I use Scout the Stat Line for a lot of my research stuff. And they actually are comparing Zyhir Hope. Right now, the comparison is like a Paul Goldschmidt. And he's, 19 years old. He's in A-ball. He's 57th on their list. But the thing is he has a 60 power tool. And the only other guys that have 60 power tools are like
Lazaro,
Montez, and Basalo. And so when you've got like a 60 power tool guy, this is a thing we can get into in future episodes. The power tool on a hitter is going to give them a longer track to run on because the home run, the long ball is sexy, right? And so when you've got a 60 power tool guy, I'm more inclined to hold those guys. No, I'm just saying, I'm just giving the fodder. What did you say, Gary?
I was asking where's Xavier Isaac? Because that's
I think Isaac's a 55.
Yeah, because he's got to be damn close to a 60.
Oh, you mean Dom Smith 2.0?
Oh, come on now. Come on.
I think
Isaac's Ham's boy.
Yeah, I think Isaac's like a 55, and Isaac's one of those guys, man. We've got 2 golds. We bought both of them under $1,000, and the way I look at it is a debuting prospects gold auto for a top tier power hitter guy. You're in a 2-3K window for that card. That's kind of, and then you've got your studs that are going to do 8 to 10,
See, that's the way to think about it. That's the way I agree. That's the way to think about it. And you've been in the hobby for a while, so you know kind of where these are at. Like stars 8 to 10, like that top prospect window is for gold is 2 to 3, maybe even up to 3,500 for, because look where Roman Anthony is right now. But that is the way to think about it, as opposed to, I'm not saying the wrong way to think about it is looking at comps, right? But when I was going back to saying where buying a card, where is the ceiling on that card? I don't care about the current comp at that point.
Exactly. And so you have to understand, like, lateral to the market, what card's realistic value is and what an expectation is. And then you have to kind of gauge, your risk and a guy that we're super into right now. And the other thing is, we can talk about future episodes too, is like when you have a guy you like, dollar cost average that buy, buy him out of product, and then dollar cost average as he goes down, just buy more. We just did that with Walker Jenkins. And we bought a lot, and we just sold a blue 10 and a refractor 10. But because we dollar cost average, we actually net made money on those 2 sales.
Exactly.
When we didn't make money on them if we'd have, because out of the product was super high.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about dollar cost averaging the opposite side too, because I've been on the opposite side of that. Where I've dollar cost my way all the way out of a lot of money. So I think it really goes back to what was earlier. Taking shows like this, getting understanding in the hobby, hearing what all the scouts are saying, hearing what everybody in Bowman is saying about a player. We brought up Paulino Santana again. That's a guy I'm seeking as much information as I can get on right now, because where's he going to go, right? I mean, that could be a giant player.
His super's here if you want to buy it, Gary.
You got the super?
Yeah, it's right up here.
Yeah, you want that? We can trade. I'll give you some Xavier Isaac for it.
By
the way, I want to clarify this. If Xavier Isaac ever listens to this show, I'm a fan. Matt's a fan. Kern through shade. You heard Dominic Smith 2.0. I want to make sure when Xavier Isaac gets 30 bombs.
Nah, Dom, I love you. I mean, Xavier, I love you, man.
And we let him roast Kern, because that's going to happen. Xavier Isaac, 2028, 30 bombs. Calling it.
I love it. Yeah, this has been fantastic, man. Like, as I record this episode with you guys, I'm already excited about next week, just because I enjoy talking to you guys so much. And I really think that is something that our listeners are going to pick up on. And man, this is going to be a ton of fun. So we are just getting started with the Sports Card CEO. I really think that in the hobby, this is going to be like the place that folks are going to come because they know they're in the room with the right people who understand business, understand the hobby, and I just think that that's going to be huge, man. So I really do feel like that's where we're going with this show, and we're looking forward to everybody being a part of it as we continue to grow.
This was fun.
Absolutely. We just got to be able to keep Kern over there out of jail. He's got a lot of police.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, man.
I'm nervous that a cop's going to come in behind you and like what's going on.
We're going to have to get Kern to get like a mute button on that mic that's like police music mute button. It just pops up on the podcast screen for the listeners.
Our lease is up at the end of the year, so I'll think about moving away from the hood here.
Guys, it's awesome. There's so much more to talk about. One thing we didn't talk about, I know we're about to end, but there is a similar situation to Zyhir Hope that happened with James Wood. A little different, but I don't know if y'all remember.
Yep, 21.
Image variation, Bowman first, true gold auto that came out. I don't know what happened in the photo or whatever, but that thing's still out there. And I remember it got pitched to me like 10 times. Then it went public comp, and I haven't seen it since. So where does
I got it. I moved it like a few months ago.
You got it?
I moved it a few months ago. You're talking about the one on the print out of 50, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it at one point. I moved it within
how did that end up? Was it profitable?
It was profitable, but I moved it within 2 days. But yeah, again, it's having the right buyer lined up.
Dude, that's interesting because you don't see those opportunities often.
I just want to keep listening to Kern's stories. This is like, I'm so excited.
I got stories.
I love it. Well, listen, guys, we're going to wrap up. For everybody, thanks so much for listening to the Sports Card CEO. We are signing off for this week. Hope you will join us for next week's episode. Y'all be well.
Thanks, you guys. Gabe Goodall, thanks for nothing.